is the Continental Lover, Eddie Mansfield, 230 pounds of twisted steel and Texas steel. You're listening to the Working Man Podcast, brother. If you don't like it, just leave it alone.
All right, everybody, it's the Working Fans Podcast with the man they call Dave, and today I got a special guest, guy who made his name for himself in the territory days back in the 70s and 80s. He's worked with the likes of the Guerreros, Ox Baker, Jimmy Snuka. He's also known for an interview he did on 2020 that we've probably all seen a million times. He's also got a production company and is doing very well for himself these days. We're going to talk to him. The Continental Lover, Eddie Mansfield. Eddie, how are you, sir?
I couldn't be better, brother. I'm doing well. Doing fine, staying healthy. Hope all the fans listening are staying healthy and doing what they need to do. Yeah, you forgot one guy, Scott Casey.
Scott, oh, yes.
Me and the Cowboy set records drawing in the great state of Texas. You know, I kind of rocked the wrestling world when I did, when they blackballed me, that Ole Anderson son of a bitch. But, you know something, when they take the food off your plate, you got to stand your damn ground. And in the wrestling business, they have no benefits, no nothing. But it's $1 billion industry. And you wonder why, they can't furnish, health care and a 401k for yourself. I did a podcast with that damn Bully Ray, son of a gun. Let me tell you, Bully Ray told me he was prepared. He's so full of shit with the Christmas turkey. Let me tell you something. When you go in the wrestling business, you think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But the bottom line is, it doesn't take care of the people that make it the money. He can get his chapstick out and do what he wants to do. But I don't have any chapstick, and it really doesn't. I don't really care what they think because I've moved past that. I had the third largest wrestling federation with the IWF. First guy to ever soundstage professional wrestling at Universal Studios. I had an actual production deal with Universal for almost 14 years. And that's besides the wrestling. Universal, took real good care of me. I have nothing to say but greatness for all the great people down at Universal. They were really good to me. But everybody else, they didn't get what the IWF had. We had RVD. I created the smoking gun. And, we had, Thunder and Lightning. We had a lot of great guys.
Yeah.
I created Kevin Kelly. I took him and put his little ass right next to the ring. And while I was training guys, how to actually work. See, there's two ways to work in this business. It's all TV now. But back in the 90s, we still had to do TV and house shows. And now it's mainly all, television instead of house shows. But there's a way to work TV and there's a way to work a house show. And most of the guys today, they don't really know the difference because they've never been taught. And it's not, you can't blame someone when they're not taught. They just kind of thrown in and think they need to know. Well, that comes from upper management. You need to teach the guys the right way. Well, when I was working, let me tell you something. They wouldn't let you in a ring if you didn't know how to work. It's just I always say give the guys, the benefit of the doubt, the young guys coming up now. Because, the guys are good. The business is strong. And I think that it's going to be just fine. The rest of the business will survive. Anything, believe me, it won't hurt it. I was vindicated. I tapped Vince McMahon's ass out, didn't I? The bottom line is, Dave, he came out and said he made me look pretty smart after 2020 because he came out and said the exact same thing that I said on 2020.
Well, 100%. And I wanted to say, too, it's funny, everybody made a big deal out of this, but here we are doing a podcast interview, years later. If you had done that 2020 thing, I don't know, let's say in the 90s, maybe later, I don't know if it would have been as big a deal to everybody else. I don't know if there would have been such outrage about it.
Well, there was an outrage, all right.
Oh, there was?
I gave them the highest rated show they ever had.
I'm still talking about it.
Yeah, everybody still talk about Eddie Mansfield.
Right.
You'd swear I'm still working. But you don't ever see me do autograph sessions. You don't ever see me do. I did one autograph signing, and that was in Atlanta because they paid me. Greg Price, you can say what you want about Greg Price. He paid me, and he paid me well to show up because I don't care about signing autographs. You understand? I'm not going to show up unless you got the money because I don't need you. I'm kind of like RVD, who used to work with me. If you're not going to pay me, I'm not showing up. And I told him that years ago. Rob Van Dam's probably one of the best workers that's ever been in the business.
Oh, no doubt. Still going strong. And also, I would say, too, kind of smart. He's always had his head in other, things, too. He's always kind of had a little bit of this and a little bit of that going on besides wrestling if needed.
Yeah, well, he's a smart guy. And one thing about RVD, I'm proud of him. He came out of the IWF, and he went on to superstardom. I told Rob, first time I ever saw him, I said, man, you're going to be a star in this business. I'm a superstar. He was my first television champion with the IWF, RVD. When you look at where, he started at Universal, and that's a pretty damn good place to start, And, he used to do vignettes with Marilyn Monroe and people like that. That most people, they don't have the show that we had. They didn't have access. None of the other, whether it was WCW who followed me, that was after they got kicked out of Disney. Yeah, my buddy Don Kennington told me, he says, I don't think these some bitches are going to last very long over here. And because Disney has strict rules.
Right.
And Universal has rules. Let me tell you something. Every one of my guys with the IWF, and that includes Kip Sock, Billy Ads, whatever they call him now, they followed the rules. And I created Kip. He wouldn't beat shit without me. And, I don't walk around saying that. I say that very, very rarely. But I taught him how to work. He didn't know how to work. He knew how to do clotheslines and elbows. That's all they knew. And see, that's what the business is back to now. Instead of really working, calling a match in the ring, they go over a match. I went to an independent show one time to see a friend of mine. He called me up, would you please come? I said, well, I really don't do this crap. You need to understand that. So I went to see him. I couldn't believe these guys sat there and went over a match for 30 damn minutes, and they were only going 10. and we used to get the finish. We never talked. You always did it in the ring, and that's a lost art. I think AEW is really going to give fits to Vince. I'm proud of Cody and Dustin and those guys because they're trying to do it the right way and bring the business back to where it used to be. There's boys. They're all vanilla looking guys. That's what's missing. What? All right, let me throw some names out to you. You're a wrestling guy.
Oh, yeah.
What would you think if a damn Wahoo McDaniel showed up on the scene right now?
Oh, Wahoo is this fucking tough as nails guy. I think we're missing guys like that, too. You're right. Everybody looks the same. Everybody looks vanilla. There's not, some grizzled-looking men, the tough guys, even some fat guys, some skinny, whatever. We just have all guys that look like they kind of came out of a fitness gym.
Professional wrestling used to be the face of America. It had fat guys. It had tough guys. It had, Indians, cowboys, plumbers, working men. We had it all. And you had a continental lover. With bleach blonde hair. Ric Flair wasn't the first son of a bitch to ever have bleach blonde hair.
No, sir.
Gorgeous George started all that. So when you look at, when I was in Los Angeles and drew all that money with Chavo Guerrero, they say I never drew money. Everywhere I went, I drew money. And there's one thing they cannot knock that. They can try, when I did Viceland, I don't know if you saw that piece.
I did, yep.
But that was the second highest rated show they had. Okay, the first one, I didn't kill anybody.
Right.
Chris Benoit killed his whole damn family. And I knew Nancy, from Kevin Sullivan.
Oh, right.
But anyway, Kevin wouldn't open his mouth on that deal, and he should have stood his ground. He should have done the interview, and he just washed his hands of it. And so, but then you had the Ricky Morton. Now Ricky Morton's probably 5'7" or 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You had that Dutch Mantel, that ass kisser from Tennessee, who never drew any money anywhere, and how he got into WWE. He kissed Jarrett's ass, and Jarrett, the old man, got him in up there. He didn't last long, did he?
Nah, he was a cup of coffee.
Yeah, buddy. No, he didn't. the damn coffee wasn't even hot. You know? I mean, his old tired ass, he wasn't so bad. You know, he hung out in Memphis his whole career because he wasn't worth the crap. He couldn't come to like Southwest Championship Wrestling like me and Scott Casey did. Started off, me and Wahoo McDaniel, Alvin Putski, and guys like us, we popped that place, me and Scott Casey. We were selling out everywhere. And that's because of Wahoo McDaniel. He was a booker. And me and Wahoo, we would set that thing up. Tully Blanchard didn't ever draw any money in Southwest. I'm the guy who told Wahoo to tag Tully and Gino together. That way, me and Scott Casey had a top spot. That way, Wahoo and Putski could work with them. Him and Chavo could work with them. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So you got to be smart in the business as well. You can't be stupid. You know, you go into the locker room these days, you see guys who actually believe that they're beating people to get these belts. That's what I think.
Yeah, no, I just saw something. I think it was Al Snow or somebody was talking about, like, somebody made a comment once, like, you know, they say who you ever beat, and he goes, well, the same people you beat, nobody. He's like, we know who's going to win beforehand. And he was saying sometimes some of the wrestlers would give enhancement guys more, like $100 or something, because to show, like, thankful for doing the favors.
And you know something, those guys should be paid more than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I used to call them, you know, not job guys, they're star makers.
Right.
Without those guys laying down for you, and a lot of those guys go whoop other people's guys' ass.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so those guys, a lot of those guys, they got jobs because they were vanilla looking like these bastards today.
And the funny, yeah, I was going to say, and the funny thing is, too, I've had some of these guys on the podcast, and some of these guys are like the best talkers. You would never know it, but they didn't get the mic time. But then you get them on here, and they can talk up a storm.
Well, that's one thing I could do is talk, man. You know,
I hear you.
It's like, the bottom line is I could draw a crowd.
I want to ask you that.
You know,
were you always a good talker? Like, even before wrestling? Was this something natural? Yeah.
Yeah, I was always a good talker. You hand me that microphone, buddy, I'll light your ass up. And you either got it or you didn't have it. One of my guys, I'm not going to ever call his name,
okay,
but he was one of the Dynamite Express for me. Let me tell you, when I was teaching these guys how to talk on television, and there's an art to that, I was teaching my guys in the IWF, you know, how to do promos, literally. And Bill Otten, you know Bill Otten, he's a famous photographer.
Yep.
And he brought his camera down, video camera, and I was having all the guys, you know, I'd have Kevin Kelly interview them, where they get used to being on television. Because, you know, all of my IWF guys never was on television, had never done any interviews. And I told them all I do the Dynamite Express. He got that camera scared his ass so bad, he had to go back and throw up. And that's a true story.
Wow.
I'm not going to tell you I'm not going to tell you which one it was, because I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But he came along, I used to have to tell those guys, I said, look, you got to look at the top of that lens, and you got to look at that camera like that's your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking to hundreds and millions of people each week. And I said, you got to make that camera your best friend.
Did you love?
A lot of guys don't do.
Did you love being a heel? I feel like you must have really loved being a heel. I can see this.
Well, hell, man, that's all I was. My whole career was a heel.
Right.
You know, I thought this fellow told me one time. He said, "Man," he said, "boy, you can piss somebody off in our." I said, "Well, they used to pay me big money to do that." I said, you think I give a shit if this guy doesn't like me or not? It didn't hurt my feelings.
Right.
You know, I rose to the top in the entertainment business. Because I take no damn prisoners. You know what I mean? I take no prisoners. Yeah,
I was looking at that. You have a very successful production company, a lot of TV shows, Mansfield Productions. How did you come across doing that? What happened there?
Well, when I got out of wrestling, I went to New York. And I was broken in the television business by really the true Mr. Monday Night was Rune Arledge. And from Monday Night Football and Wide World of Sports and many other things, you know. And he broke me into business. And he taught me the right way. And, you know, for your listeners, I'm going to tell you a business terminology that Arledge taught me years ago. If a deal feels bad, it is bad. Get up, shake the guy's hand, and leave. walk out the door. But you got to have the cojones to stand up and lead. Because if the deal really sucks, 99.9% of the time, it does suck.
Right. That's good advice.
If you've ever learned anything from Eddie Mansfield, believe me, do that. And you'll be more successful than if you sat there and took a shitty deal and make somebody else rich.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you too, before we got out of this too, was you were like obviously a really good heel. What was some of like the best territories, like in terms of like crowd reaction, where you felt like people might want to kill you? Like, you know, like where you're like, okay, like was Texas, Florida?
I was stabbed 7 times.
Fuck.
So, yeah, and I think 3 or 4 of them were like 300. I thought it was a guy. So I caught that fat so and so on the chin. Boy, her little fat ass went slid right on the floor up against the bleachers. Bam. That was it. I was gonna go put the boots on. I looked at it as a girl. I said, "Oh my god!" And so I had to go in. They had commissioners back then, so we'd have doctors, and I had to get a tetanus shot. So I had a bunch of them, man. And I got stabbed 3 times when I was the America's heavyweight champion out in L.A. I got stabbed when they tried to get me, and they got me, and I had 6 cops around me. They stabbed me in the belt, the leather belt, that held the championship. So I couldn't believe it, but they actually did that.
I can see why you wouldn't miss wrestling.
Well, you got, when you provoke people, like I used to get some serious heat.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could get heat with just a normal guy right off the street, I could damn sure crank it up a notch and get real heat. And that's what I used to do, from talking about, tortillas, talking about the Mexicans and stuff like that. And it's like, dancing around a sombrero, doing the cucaracha. And so it's like stuff like that kind of fires them up,
Right.
And, like we had a lot of, Spanish people that came to L.A., and we had a lot of great crowds in Los Angeles, the Olympic Auditorium. I mean, that was a hell of a building, man, for wrestling. Oh, my goodness gracious.
Yeah, we had Dr. Tom on, and he was telling a lot about his stories and stuff like that, too, breaking in around that time. Seems like it was a very underrated territory. Los
Angeles was a great territory, man.
Yeah.
And I used to do the Cow Palace once a month, and then a couple of times I'd work for, that team was running some towns, and me and Chavo and Leroy Brown would go up there and sell them out. Like Modesto, Fresno, there's another town up here in northern Florida, Sacramento, and we'd sell them out. Cats coming right off the Cow Palace. We'd go up and do the Cow Palace once a month, with Roy Shire, do a couple dates, and then go right back in and do, Olympic, and, it was an easy. Man, I was on the beach every day.
Nice.
Out and on the beach. I lived right on Santa Monica Beach. It was great. I rented a place from Joe Gold. Man, he was a great guy. We used to play volleyball against Chuck Barrett and Vern Langdon from the Gong Show. Remember them?
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And Chuck Barrett, man, he impressed me a lot. He used to have 12 different girls every day.
This was a wild time in the wrestling industry, huh?
Hey, he was in the right industry, though.
Yeah.
He had that Gong Show going. He was hot, man. He used to go to big parties up in Hollywood Hills and stuff. Oh, mercy, Daddy. You have no idea.
Let me ask you, before I get you, I'm going to do a little word association. I'm just going to do like 2 names instead of, throw a lot at you because they do this all the time. I just want to throw a couple names at you. Vince McMahon. Let's just start off with.
Personally, what I think about Vince, I admire him as a businessman.
Yeah.
I think what he accomplished in the world of professional wrestling will never be seen again. How he went about it. From the first WrestleMania all the way to this one now in a COVID world, and survived. I don't know him personally. I knew his dad a little bit, not much. But as a businessman, I admire him for what he's accomplished. It's just amazing. And my hat's off to Vince McMahon. I hope he stays healthy and keeps going strong.
2 guys, I'll mention them both at the same time then, just because they're part of that famous piece. David Schultz, and I don't know if you had a lot of experience with David, but David and John Stossel. What are your impressions of them years later?
Oh, wow. Well, David, David's a friend of mine and always will be. David David really taught me a lot when I was, a young kid breaking into business. And, he can say what he wants to do. He says shit on a microphone, when he's got one about me, but then he'll call right behind me, and tell me, oh, Ed, I just got to make it look good, and that's the old timer in him. That's all.
Yeah.
And David, I think the world of, and his whole family. I've known him since I was 19 years old. That's a long time. David got the host job, man, because I told, and I hate to mention John Stossel in the same way that I mentioned with David.
Yeah.
Because I have absolutely no respect for John Stossel and the hatchet job he did on me, and the hatchet job he did on David Schultz, and the hatchet job he did on the rest of the business. Because I'm going to say this until the day I die, and I want to make this the last time I really say this shit. Somebody ought to get this. That they host me. When I went to do 2020, they were supposed to take the business, and I told them back then it was $1 billion industry, and they were going to compare it with the NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, and the National Hockey League, and the way they take care of their players versus the way they take care of professional wrestlers who are professionals. You notice it says professional wrestling, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And professional wrestlers are great athletes, so they need to be treated with respect as athletes. But John Stossel made it a damn egomaniac story about him getting slapped.
Right.
And boy, let me tell you something. And I told you, if you that's scripts, I told him not to interview David because David had nothing to do with this. And Vince McMahon was trying to get rid of David, and I knew that. And Vince told him to slap John. And he really wouldn't have had to tell him. He would have slapped him anyway.
Right.
And so the bottom line is John Stossel got his comeuppance, but how come he doesn't pay up $298,000?
Right.
And slapped harder. Let me tell you something. I got slapped harder many than John Stossel ever got hit. And they didn't pay me no $290,000 for getting slapped.
I think it says a lot about John Stossel that you can watch a documentary. A guy twice his size slapped him in the face, and the guy that slapped him in the face was essentially the baby face to all of us. So I think that says a lot about John Stossel right there.
Well, I people that don't like me, and they don't like me, I don't know why. I haven't ever done anything, and I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they compare me and John Stossel.
Oh.
The people that look at Pete Snow is an ego piece. It's a meat piece on John Stossel. And I told John Stossel this one time in New York. I said, John,
I think you broke up there. Oh, there you go.
You were nothing but a little bitty old flying reporter until you latched on to mine and threw me under the bus. Oh, I went to the president of ABC, and I told them if they didn't back off the David Schultz.
I think you broke up there, little Eddie.
That was in the 80s. And I told them, I said, I was going to call a press conference, at 4 o'clock that afternoon if they didn't leave David Schultz alone. Drop the suit against him and all that. And I was going to tell them the real truth about their story, the way they treated me and the way they set everybody up. That's what he did. He set me up. He set David up. He set the whole wrestling business up.
Thank you for doing this. Is there anything you want to tell people, like what you're doing now, and promote anything?
I have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and I'm in the midst of doing 3 television series, back to back to back. I'm doing a Christmas special at the end of August, which is really cool. It's going to be really a good one. And then I have two series to do right after that. So, and I can't tell you the names of those now,
right?
Until they're released. I'll come back on your podcast and give you the skinny after I shoot them.
Oh, awesome!
I got to kind of kayfabe them damn things, or I'll lose my job.
No, I understand that. Yeah, it's a different animal.
Well, yeah, I'm in the thieving business. They'll still. I sit down with these guys sometimes in the entertainment business. I laugh because I swim with the biggest sharks in the world. And they try to get over on me, and I just laugh at them.
Yeah.
Because it's funny. I mean, it's funny. You know, because I've been in the ring with the best. I've been in the opposites with the best. I've seen them all.
Yeah, these guys aren't bringing nothing new to the table. You probably haven't seen it all in your business.
You're not going to run no. I just looked right at him. I said, man, I swim a lot bigger sharks than you. You know, if you don't want to get into the right deal, we just won't do a deal at all.
Right. Walk away.
But that's the way you got to look. You know, you got to look at life. You know, this is no dress rehearsal I'm in. You know, I'm not going to come back. You know, from the dead. Once I'm dead, I'm gone.
Mm.
So I'm going to make the best of it while I'm here. And I enjoy life. I love people, and I love being around people. This COVID just, you know, it's really tough on the nation. I just hope, you know, all the politics aside, you know, there's politics and everything. It's just sad that it's hurting our nation like it is. You know, people need to, you know, love other people a little bit more. Don't think you're some kind of damn tough guy because you can run a computer, because you're really not. You know, you're just another asshole out there that thinks he's tough, you know, with a computer.
Keyboard warrior.
That's all they are, man.
Yeah.
Because if you grab them by the nape of the neck, they're going to squeal like a little girl, you know? So it's like, there's no big thing, you know?
Well, Eddie, you're absolutely a blast to listen to, man. I think you could have done this interview by yourself, but I'm happy you did it on my show anyway. Thank you so much, man.
Well, you know, Dave, there's one thing about the wrestling business. You can either talk or you can't talk.
Mm.
And I got thousands of stories. I could keep you busy for the rest of the day. But I'm just, you know, I'm honored that you invited me on the show. And anytime you need Eddie Mansfield, just give me a buzz.
Will do.
And if I'm available, I'll be there.
Awesome.
And because I'm a working man. You know, I'm producing my ass off, and I really love this. Always remember this. I'm gonna leave this with your wrestling fans.
Okay.
I didn't quit the wrestling business. It quit me.
Hmm.
So, but hey, I'm enjoying producing, and I'm enjoying, you know, creating, and it's been, you know, really a good run for me. I found my niche. I'm just blessed that I got good health. You know, I hurt, you know, every morning when I get up, I can feel them bumps, you know.
Sure.
But the bottom line is, I'm healthy, and that's the main thing. If you stay healthy, stay strong, and be good, man. And you got to keep moving. Don't let them get in your way. Step over them.
That was awesome. I'm going to have you back on when I can. We'll talk stories and we'll set something up, man. I appreciate this. Thank you.
Yo, this is David Starr, and you're listening to the Working Fans Podcast.
Working Fans Podcast. Today we are joined by the cream in your coffee, your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler, the Jewish Cannon, the physical embodiment of charisma, the most entertaining man in professional wrestling. This one's a little tough today. The Bernie Sanders of professional wrestling, the best of the best, Mr. American Rana, Davey Wrestling, the 104-minute man, the main event. He's really good at Twitter. He's the king of taunts, the product, and today's guest on the Working Fans Podcast, David Starr. David, how are you doing today?
I'm good. You got all of the nicknames.
I got to tell you, I was worried about that because I've seen Rich Palladino do it time after time again, and I'm like, that's amazing. And then I'm looking at him, and I'm like, holy shit, I don't know if I can do this.
Rich is kind of like where it started, really. Rich Palladino was the first one, because I just wanted a bunch of nicknames, and I just told him to give me a bunch. And he made up like a whole list. He would just say a bunch of them, and I gave him a few, and then I started growing them to a set list. But Rich is the one who came up with the cream in your coffee. So that's Rich Palladino's.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow. Now, we don't often talk politics on here, but it's kind of topical. Bernie Sanders dropping out of the presidential race today. How do you feel about that? What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, obviously it's disappointing. Like, you can't say it's not. But at the end of the day, I think You can't say that the establishment of the Democratic Party out-organized Bernie. There's some faults you could look at in the campaign, but I do think that he stuck to his principles the whole time through. I think he still has the right positions. I think a lot of people, when you saw all the exit polls, agreed with his agenda, but were basically told that they didn't think he could beat Trump. They weren't given the permission. It seemed like that was what people wanted. They were asked the question as if it's a binary choice of, would you rather a candidate you agree with or one that can beat Trump? As if, like, Bernie couldn't be both. You know, like, everyone agreed with Bernie, but he couldn't beat Trump. Why is that? He absolutely, there was no reason why he couldn't. He polled better than everybody else in the swing states, the most important states, and we'll see what happens now with Biden, who I'm extremely nervous about in November, if the election happens in November. So, I mean, yeah, it's disappointing, but, you know, Bernie, the whole movement, the idea of these politics it's way more than one electoral campaign, way more than that, and Bernie's not the type of guy who's going to stop fighting for that. He's going to keep going. I'm pretty sure till, like, his last breath, he's going to be a fighter the whole time. So it's disappointing that he won't be president, but it is what it is. Fight goes on.
Yeah. I was looking at the calendar today, and I realized the first night of Passover. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope we didn't interrupt you at all for that.
No, actually, no, you're cool, man. The Tesco near us, the market, doesn't have any like Passover stuff. Nothing like that. We've had to go to, there's like a much bigger store, but we have to walk there. It's like a further walk and to get to like a kosher section and all that for anything like that. And I'm supposed to have a Zoom Seder with a few of my friends this weekend. So that'll be cool. And I'm going to talk to my mom, my dad, and just try and keep it as much as we can. Maybe have our own little dinner here, but no, you didn't interrupt anything tonight. We're just kind of relaxing.
Now, are grocery supplies over there as blown out as they are over here?
They were. I mean, it seems like things are getting a little bit more normal as far as, you know, people aren't like hoarding everything. They're not like over shopping or panic buying and stuff. It seems now that that's over and there is this, like, you know, almost regular routine. Like now, you know, there is like normal stocks of toilet paper seems to be happening a lot now.
Oh, wow.
Over here. Like, we're at that point, you know, like, it's like, oh, okay, there is toilet paper here. That's not like this, you know, like, golden object now all of a sudden. So things are getting okay, but yeah, that definitely was the case at first.
I've got to ask you, you've got a podcast called We the Independent, the Twitter's at We the Indie, website WeTheIndependent.com. What does independent wrestling mean to you, being that you branded your company that way?
Well, the idea of independent is not just about, like, literal independent wrestling. Like, obviously there's a connection there because I think independent wrestling has this aura, this vibe to it. I think independent wrestling is very counterculture, very anti-establishment. I think there is this punk rock feel to what independent professional wrestling is, this underground community, you know. That's just how it seems to be, and there's a real bond between the performers and the fans. So that's kind of, obviously we're borrowing from that, but the idea of being independent is just standing up for yourself and recognizing your own power, and that we are able to stand up for ourselves, and that's kind of what it's supposed to be about, what the idea is supposed to embody. But that's what independent wrestling is to me. And yeah, I guess I'm happy. I guess I'm happy to have branded myself by that, because I think indie wrestling is cool. You know? Yeah.
And I mean, from listening to the podcast, basically, you're trying to include various artists, and long story short about independent, correct me if I'm wrong, is basically you guys want to give artists a chance to get into equity, the union, so they can be fairly compensated, right? And be able to organize in a way.
Well, yeah, so we're taking we're a merchandising company, and then we're taking portions of our proceeds, and we're taking that money and we're sponsoring wrestlers in the UK into equity membership. So we're basically sponsoring their union dues. So we're paying for their union memberships. And with that union membership, you get like a bunch of different benefits, which are like super awesome, some of which only came through because of our campaign. We, the Independent and Equity, working together along with help from like Eve and stuff like that to finally get wrestlers included on Equity's insurance, like disability welfare insurance. So if a wrestler gets hurt, they can still get paid for shows they miss. Like it's pretty fantastic, the benefits you get with that. And part of that also, when you join Equity, is it does give you more collective power. So then we have the idea of being a subsection of Equity, being a wrestler's protection thing. We're also looking to have codes of conduct that are negotiated through Equity, and the more promotions that sign up to that, it almost can become a little mini unionized territory. And you could have we're way far away from all that, but like those are like the things you can build to create an independent wrestling scene that has a good safety net for the independent wrestlers that are a part of it.
Yeah, you really got to start somewhere. And I really connected with your whole movement because a year ago, the grocery store that I work for, we actually went on strike for, it was like a good week. It's actually coming up, the anniversary of it, April 11th this year. And
hell yeah. Well, what were you striking for?
The company wanted to cut back on benefits it was giving us, and all the union was trying to do was keep what we had. And as it went on, it just became a thing where they wouldn't budge. So we went on strike, and I was one of the few people that kind of had hurt feelings over it because I felt like neither side cared. And I came out of the strike really jaded. And then I've been a fan of yours for years, and I happened to cross your podcast, and the urgency with which you talk and the conviction with which you speak, I've never heard. And then it made me realize how lucky I am to be in a union and how the carefree kind of existence I have is only because there's those guarantees. So when you talk about codes of conduct for them to work with, I saw that when going to other jobs last summer, when they got like one break a day, and I'm like, wait a minute, I got 2 breaks and a lunch coming to me if I'm here 8 hours. And they just laughed. They're like, nah, bud, you work in a different place now. So I just wanted to thank you for really bringing the union talk to the front, especially when it's got to work against you a lot of times. I imagine it's got to cost you money and opportunities. How do you persevere in the face of that?
Well, I mean, yeah, I've lost a couple bookings and opportunities from things I've said and stuff. But you have to think. I guess you just think about what you're doing it for. What was it, Eddie King? I can quote Eddie Kingston all the time. He said to me, he said, "There's a price to being real, and you don't take money with you to the grave." So, like, basically, just be yourself, be real, just stay by whatever what you think is the right thing to do is just what you should be doing. I guess that's it. I hate sounding any sort of kind of way like that because it's just the things that we're talking about are things that should just be normal. Like when you talk about any other athlete, they have these protections. They have the ability to fight for their own terms and conditions. It's little things like that. The pro wrestler is just not afforded the same opportunities, and that's really what it should just be everybody waking up to. So I appreciate you saying that though, like because there is there's a massive amount of propaganda that is lobbied against unions from a lot of people. So it's, even if something gets better for you, someone else is stealing from you then. And then you have the 2 biggest movies that have come out, or you just recently had the anti-union, or The Irishman, is this corrupt union movie that just came out, and everyone's like all like, weirded out by unions. And that, you have to fight against that and realize that that's the only way we have to fight back against the people that actually have power.
Oh, yeah, we had people. It wasn't a lot of people because we did see a lot of support from the community. But there was a rare few that would scream at us, "Get a real job. Why are you guys being so greedy?" And that really hurt because I'm like, how are we being greedy, standing up for what we think is right in such a tough time, like right after the start of the new year? So different people view unions in different ways, and it's hard when you're on the other side of that and you can't get through to them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that I think there is an acceptance of the way it is, and I think it appears to be such a daunting task to imagine anything different, and I think that really stifles people's imagination, and people fear change, and I think that's a huge reason why people fight change. They think of like the idea of an overhaul of an economic system, or basically they think that anything that's not entirely 100% capitalist, which no one's like overthrown capitalism tomorrow. I'm sorry, it's just not happening tomorrow. So everyone's got to chill out, but like we're just going to balance the scales a little bit more, you know, and we have to.
Yeah.
I think people get afraid of something that's different.
Now, do you come from a family of activists, or is this something that's particular to you? Because you're very outspoken, you're very well-spoken about your stance. Is this a family thing, or is this just something you picked up?
No, I mean, I think it's a family thing to be loud, but the family thing to be loud, and my brother's also, my brother's a working actor in New York. So, I mean, I guess we have a little bit of entertainers thing in us. But no, nothing politically like that at all. It's just, I attach myself to it. I think that it's the most real thing that's happening, the most relevant thing there is. It's what's actually dictating lives. It's determining life and death. It's the most important thing there is, and we need to do everything we can to prevent as much suffering as possible.
As Joe's talking about, you're a very good talker. I was just kind of wondering, like, when I watch you do promos, who are some of your influences? Because, especially I was listening to, like, the one you did at Over the Top Rope about Moxley and the Black Machismo one for a few years ago. And I think, like, there's this element of realism in there. And I always think that those are the best promos. I think of guys like Terry Funk and people like that. So I'm just wondering, where do you get that influence from?
Oh, man. Honestly, I like watching all the great wrestling promo guys. I've watched a bunch of times. But I mostly like watching people that are, like, real athletes. Like, I love watching Muhammad Ali stuff. I love watching, like, Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor and all those guys. Those always entertain. Deion Sanders as well, Terrell Owens. Like, I like that kind of athlete. That was like who I was like attracted to as a fan. So that's just always what I did. I just kind of try to do it my own way. Mm-hmm. I guess like how it felt natural to me, like how I would act if I was mad, or I don't know. I always try to listen to the thing that I heard JR say on a shoot interview. It's like, just be yourself, but turn it up to 11. Like, those are the best things that work. Or just the volume turned up on you, something like that. That's just always what I'm always trying to do in every aspect. So I try to think of how I would be as an athlete, and so I just kind of go into what I was like when I was an athlete, like wrestling in college and high school, and how I acted and how I carried myself and the way I moved and the way that's just what I always thought. That's the way I always try to treat it. It goes with promos too.
The gentleman at Over the Top Rope, I saw you do the interview with Agnes, I believe.
Angus. Yeah, Ango. Yeah. Ango. Yeah, Angus McAnally.
Yes, he plays off you very well, and like when I see you taking these digs, it almost reminds me of like something I would do, like to piss off like one of my exes or something. Like, it's very quiet, almost like this like smug, like you would, and like he looks legitimately angry, and you guys are really like it's a very engaging when I watch it.
Angus the man. He's great. I believe he's a working actor in Ireland. He's great. We always just go off the cuff all the time, and we just work off. And it's not even like we have this little rivalry thing we have. Wasn't booked or anything like that. We just kind of like started. It just kind of has grown, and that's the great thing. Like OTT is the best independent wrestling company in the world. It just is. And Angus is one of the big reasons for it. He's a great commentator. He's a great actor. He's great in his interviews. He's fantastic. So everyone should go check out OTT, by the way. Go watch all of that.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely planning on it. Like I saw some interviews and stuff. I was preparing for this, and I was like, okay, I have to see more of this. This is very well done.
No, OTT is the best independent wrestling company in the world right now. It's like OTT, Beyond. I'm trying to think of ones that are like actually just completely independent. OTT, Beyond, PWG, Game Changer. Yeah.
Yeah, the first time I saw you was Beyond Wrestling, and like the thing like we talked about in the beginning where you had the different nicknames with Rich there, and I'm like, it grabbed me right away because this was like 2015, I want to say, and I was first getting back like I never really broke away from wrestling, but I hadn't kept up like with independence, and a buddy of mine said, you got to check out independent wrestling, and Beyond was one of the first shows I went to, and I just remembered that. It caught me right away. It was something different, and I was like, okay, I like this. I like the 10, 15 nicknames here.
Beyond's the best. Beyond's like one of my favorite places I've ever worked for because I've been there for forever. If it wasn't for me putting over OTT so hard right there, you'd be hearing the same thing about Beyond. But Beyond is so great, and they get like talent in from the beginning, including even before I had any nicknames. And then Rich Palladino, like I said before, him helping me out, like kind of the length of time the nickname list was going to be, and then Dan Barry being there gave me another nickname. There was a lot of Beyond's actually very, very linked to it. I mean, Mr. American Rana is after Beyond's big show, American Rana. Davey Wrestling is from a two-match feud I had with Johnny Gargano from Beyond Wrestling. So it's very intertwined with Beyond. So I love that place. And thanks for even bringing that up. I was thinking about that. I haven't been thinking about wrestling that much over the past, just sitting here with all the boredom around.
No, I get it, man. There's a lot to be distracted by. Well, how do you feel about that? I mean, WWE, AEW, and any company right now that's putting on a wrestling show in empty arenas, where do you fall on that?
Nah, not anymore, man. It's not okay at this point. It shouldn't be happening. I did a empty arena show, No Fans Monday, and that was borderline and probably shouldn't have happened, but if there was anything done even the next day, that would have been totally out of bounds. We are clearly at the point now where awareness is enough to where we can't be having these gatherings. You can't be having people travel in and out. It's wrong. Sends a wrong message. It's just a wrong thing to do. It's risking workers' health. It's wrong.
Yeah.
The longer we wait till lockdown, the longer we're gonna have to wait to get to the other side of this. So we just gotta should just be shut down. There's no excuse at this point.
No, I understand, and it's funny. Like, I'm a big MMA and UFC fan as well, and I hear Dana White getting a private island to have fights, and I'm like, is this Mortal Kombat? Are we coming to the what are we doing? It's just crazy.
Yeah, come on, man. No, just postpone it.
Right.
But it is insane that they're even thinking about this. They'll do anything to make sure they make their money. It's ridiculous. It's gross. It's gross.
Let me ask you something else. Just going back just to wrestling, the artistic point of this. You said you were in an empty arena match. One thing I've noticed, and this isn't talking about Terry Funk and Jerry Lawler, where there was this story back in the day, but I've noticed by watching empty arena matches with no story, just an empty arena match, it's very hard to get into without the fans. This is just I'm curious what you think, but I noticed, right, it's hard to get into without the fans for me. I do tend to find the people who can verbalize more and actually talk will bring me in, and it's got to be muscle memory. I'm no way judging anybody. I totally get it. You still see people just instinctively playing to the crowd. What are your thoughts? How do you psychologically go into that? And what do you think?
You just gotta, in an empty arena match, in my opinion, you just focus on the match. Just focus on the match. You don't need to play. There's ways you can be like, if you make it so that you're not like a hokey, like playing to the crowd. You're not like begging for it. If you come up with ways to do that in your actual matches when there were crowds, then you wouldn't be reliant on that and feel weird in an empty arena match. We shouldn't be pandering so much anyway. We should kind of be more subtle about it. I mean, there's a time and a place for everything. You know what I mean? Like, but we should limit our direct pandering as much as we can, I think. And if you just approach an empty arena match just by focusing on the match itself, then you should be fine. It's rough, man. It's weird. You know, if you're not used to it, especially, it's weird. But you get through it, and then if you're, you get through it, you focus on the match, you try and just seem aggressive and make up for the lack of sound and make sure they're not watching a silent movie. You know, that's pretty much all you can do is try and have a good match, man.
Yeah, I noticed the guys that, like, with a lot of experience, especially coming from the indies for a while, like Bryan Danielson, they seem to really adapt better to it on a bigger stage. Almost like, they were used to probably wrestling in front of small people, I'd imagine, too. So they know.
Yeah, I was going to say I've wrestled in front of 2 people before. I think there was a tweet that was going around that said, like, what's the smallest crowd you've wrestled in front of? And it was a bunch of people in single digits. We're used to that, and that's way more terrifying than wrestling in front of thousands.
Did you have a chance to see, I'll just call it, whether it was online, like the cinematic wrestling? And I mean, we could look back at the stuff that Matt Hardy's done in the past too, with Ultimate Deletion and stuff like that. But, there was a lot of talk this week about that. Like, what are your opinions about that? The cinema wrestling, we'll call it.
Well, I think it's cool, man. Why not?
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm open to all stuff in wrestling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's pro wrestling. It doesn't have it doesn't have to be 2 guys in trunks that are pro wrestlers. I accept the Undertaker because I'm willing to go outside the box. You have to be willing to accept that sort of stuff. So why not? It's something different. I think it's cool as long as it's done right. I guess it's always about as long as it's done right. That's it.
I would agree because I'm a fan, and I personally like a more realistic, athletic, hard-hitting presentation, and I like the Boneyard thing they did. And then I saw the Funhouse, and it wasn't necessarily my thing, but I thought it was so well done by the people who produced it, and the stuff I've seen too, like with Matt Hardy, that it brings me in. I'm engaged. I don't know if I'd want to watch it all the time personally, but I like it. I'm obviously not against it. Anybody, like you said, it's art, whatever you bring to it. But I would say, like, even not even being something I normally would, like, flock to watch, I was like, this is so well done. I'm into this. And it was a break from something else I was watching, too.
Dude, I think it's cool. I just think it's cool. Why not? If you can do something different, if you can do something different that's going to stand out, you're still entertaining people. You're still telling a story. Why not, man? I think it's more power to everybody. It also gets more people more jobs. Like the production people get to edit stuff and do that. Yeah, sure. There's great people that they have hired there, so let's let them work.
You live in England now, right?
I do. I live just outside of London.
And now, what made you decide to do that? Just love the area? Was it for work, or how did that come about?
Well, I was working a lot over here, so my girlfriend is from here, and I mean, it made more sense, again, because I was working over here so much. I liked working over here a lot. Being over here, I don't have to worry about healthcare because that's just taken care of. So it just made more sense to be here, and yeah, I really like it.
When you're on the road, what might be like, especially now since it's not really an option too much, but like, what would be a go-to restaurant that you would normally go to?
A go-to restaurant? Well, it depends on where I'm. It depends on where I am. Because if I'm, what is it? What was the one? Oh man, I can't even think about it. I'm in North Carolina. There's this like a burger. There's like a burger place that I can't think of the name. I used to go there with Tim Donst all the time, and I can't remember the name. Oh, this is terrible. But I would always go to like Steak and Shake. Steak and Shake. I always go there when I'm in the Midwest. I always go to Steak and Shake in the Midwest. Other restaurants, I'm always ending up at like a Denny's or something like that. Or what's another, like a Bob Evans. No, I hate Cracker Barrel. I hate it.
I was wondering, this is kind of a cliche one.
Yeah, I do hate Cracker Barrel. I love diners. I miss them so much. There's no diners over here. It's just not like a thing. I'm just going to say like Denny's. That's probably on the road. I end up at a Denny's or like a McDonald's. It's probably the most frequent places.
So with the We the Independent, like when did you first get that idea?
Basically, James Musselwhite, my business partner, we recorded a couple promos before. We really liked working together. And then we did this one for Progress Super Strong Style 16 this past year. And it was just good. And James drew up this logo on his computer, and we were like, all right, and we just kind of ran with it. And then we came up with, we're like, what could we do about this? Because obviously we had our own things. We wanted to kind of give something back. We didn't want to just oh yeah, great, we're going to be selling these T-shirts, and then that's that. We kind of wanted to do something. We didn't want to just kind of talk about it. We wanted to be about it. So then we just kind of came up with the idea, and we set up a meeting with Equity, and then everything kind of got rolling from there, man. It was just kind of, we realized we wanted to do something.
That's awesome. For as long as you can remember, have you always been this driven? Because you definitely seem like a guy who probably doesn't sleep a lot and just has a lot of stuff going on.
I'm definitely, I try and maintain structure as much as I can because I want to keep myself busy. That's absolutely the truth. But I don't know, my friends have always said that if there's something that I want, then I go 110% at it. Like, it's hard for me to have multiple focuses. I go at something as much as I can, like when I'm facing it, like like a million miles an hour. So my biggest thing I'm trying to do is just stay patient. That's the biggest thing, is learning patience and getting excitement and having excitement, but still keeping yourself collected, but not taking away any of the joy from your ups. It's all a learning process, but yeah, I guess I do feel pretty driven to do something because I want to make sure that I leave a good legacy.
That's awesome. David, you've been great. Anything you want to promote right now, and where can people find you?
Sweet. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. Just go for merchandise from me, davidstarmerch.com, or you can go to my Twitter or Instagram page. You can see the links to my other merchandise stores are there. My Twitter and Instagram is @theproductds. Go to wetheindependents.com, and you can pick up some merch from there. You can also go to our podcast, wetheindependents.com/podcast. We have a bunch of great episodes. We just dropped the Eddie Kingston episode, I believe, last night, and that was wild. We have some other great ones with like Shane Taylor, and Sugar Dungerton has a bunch of great episodes there too, with Effie and Faye Jackson, and it's awesome. So I think that's all that I have to. Oh, and you can check I think that's @WeTheIndie, spelled with an IE, not a Y, because we're indie, not indie. So I think that's it.
Awesome. David, thank you so much for your time. This is a great interview. I'll let you know when it's coming out, and I appreciate all your help, man.
Oh, sweet. Thanks, man. I appreciate it, guys.
As Tracy Smothers says, you got to have a job to support your wrestling habit,
Rare.
This is Jay Steele, and you're listening to the Working Fans Podcast. Don't get worked.
All right, everybody. It's the Working Fans Podcast with the man they call Dave, AJ Strangebrew, and today we have a special guest on. This gentleman has worked for promotions such as TNA, Ring of Honor, WWE. He's even trained a lot of wrestlers you might know, Colt Cabana, CM Punk, one of the all-time greats. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ace Steele. Ace, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing awesome. I'm upright and not on the ground, so you can't complain about that.
Absolutely. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was right from the get-go, like who influenced like your style of wrestling? I mean, I know, tell us a little about like who trained you and stuff, because you had some really good trainers from what I saw.
So the trainers that, say, if you go on the Wikipedia site and see, are the people that I've, come in contact with over the years. The initial training started at Windy City Wrestling in Chicago, which at the time was on Sports Channel, which Sports Channel was, it was big shit back then. For a kid out of high school, I'm like, where do I go? And I turned on Sports Channel on Friday nights, and man, there's this wrestling TV show when wrestling was hot, like in the 80s, And we're talking to Windy City Wrestling, where Paul Heyman booked for I don't know how long he really booked there, but he booked for a short time. He'd be responsible for the Bam Bam Bigelow versus Terry Gordy match, the Battle of the Bam Bams, bringing Brody in, like stuff like that. And of course, the original Midnight. So it was, when you look at it, just being Chicago-based, it was pretty top-notch. And they'd run the International Amphitheater, which was going back to the old days of wrestling in Chicago. So the guy by the name of Sam DeCero ran the promotion. He was just a local guy that worked with the tag partner Eli the Eliminator, who you might remember as, well, he was Eli the Eliminator in Texas for World Class. Yeah. They worked for Dick the Bruiser, so it kind of spawned off Dick the Bruiser, and that's where this guy came from. And then he had what I've come to find out when I just think about it, is like he just had a lot of enhancement guys that trained for him, which is what happens a lot, you know? Like, you need the mechanics in there helping guys out. So that's where I started. Influence-wise, man, it was everything. Because, you know, when I grew up and really started catching on, you know, I love the Horsemen. I'm an NWA mark.
Nice.
I love everything NWA. You go back as far as to Georgia, you know, as far back in time, anything I can watch that's incredible work. Or then Heart and Perfect, you know, I get caught on that when I'm in high school. So, you know, just all that type of stuff, whether that was exactly in my style or not, that's the type of wrestling I love. So, you know, and then you even love the Freebirds. Like, I see the flamboyancy of guys. Like, how do you mix that all in, you know? So guys like that back in those days, like exactly, like old NWA Crockett. AWA I grew up on specifically, and there's a lot of characters in the AWA.
We're around the same age bracket. I'm 44, and this is AJ. And I grew up also on the NWA. I grew up on, obviously, Little World Class, being on ESPN, AWA. And when I went down to train, similar to what you did, you saw it on TV. I went down and wrestled for a few years, but I trained with Adrian Street. And the reason why I found Adrian to train with at Skull Crushers was because I was flipping through Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and in the back of the magazine there, you would have the different classified sections. So I went down and trained him. And I love Adrian to this day, but I should have went to Windy City because you guys turned out some of the best wrestlers in that time period, to be honest with you, for the independents and beyond.
Oh, thank you. Well, his first bumps, Chris Daniels took with me, you know, which is I just don't think about it. It's been so long, but for sure his first bumps, and probably if he recalls, and probably not because he's had so many matches by this point, but one of the first matches that he had to call in the ring was with me. I said, we'll just call it out there. You know, well, what do you mean? You know, we're not, we'll talk about a couple things. Let's just go call it. I mean, that's always been my opinion. We train together. I know what you know. Let's just feel the people and go with it. And we had quite a crew. I mean, a lot of guys came out of there that, you know, moved on to Puerto Rico, had a little bit of fame, didn't. Chris Daniels was the first independent superstar, you know?
Well, what I saw from Windy City Wrestling, and this is just obviously my opinion, but you guys were ahead of the curve. What you set up was very similar to what we see in the independents today, where there is more matches with a higher skill level. Because when I was first breaking in, it was a lot of the WWE or old NWA guys trying to hold on for one more payday, which you can't blame them, obviously, but you would get booked in a match to enhance them, and that was basically the card. Whereas you guys had wonderful matches where you were seeing young talent with great skill sets. And do you feel that you guys just were ahead of the curve on that?
I think later on, when we actually started the wrestling school, that's when it clicked for us. Windy City had an element of what you're talking about exactly. The Iron Sheik was booked on shows against the champion. Ken Patera had come in, and there's nothing disparaging about those guys. Those are the guys we need to learn from. But exactly what you're talking about. We got, we had the tail end of Mr. Electricity, Steve Regal. Hell of a worker.
Oh, yeah.
He lives in Indiana, I want to say, and he would come up and work the champions and give those guys some grooming. And it wasn't until we started the school, and the reason we started the school was, and it's no offense to the guys that trained me, but I knew at that point how to advance. I can train anyone as good as I was trained. I remember all that. Now, here's all the things I've learned, and I need to excel. I want to get to that next level. So we started a school, mainly for our benefit, and then lo and behold, we had some great workers come along and spawn from that place. So, yeah, I will go with that at the later stage that, we kind of somehow, it's just like anybody, like, oh, that's the future right there. And just like anything that is the future, those old guys, they hated us, you know.
One thing I noticed when you were working in TNA, it basically said, I saw you in a tag team with CM Punk, but you had already helped train some of these guys. Were you having to like balance training and wrestling? Were you basically doing both at the same time? How did that work?
Balancing, definitely balancing. By the time I think that TNA thing came along, I think the school had dissolved.
Okay.
Because the school really only lasted about 3 years, I believe. I'd have to really go back and look at time frame. Like, it's gotten more of a stamp of just like the prestige it has, more than, than it really lasted. I was actively training guys at probably around that time where it dissolved. But we would go out on the road. I mean, we were weekend warriors, so anytime we could get work, we were gone. We were going to Minnesota. We're hopping in the car to do that, going to Ring of Honor by that point, I think. If Ring of Honor hadn't come along with, I'd have to look at dates. It was just constant busyness.
Yeah, I went through a similar thing wrestling for Yankee Pro Wrestling. I had one night you'd be wrestling in Worcester, Mass. The next night you're on the Canadian border up in Maine wrestling and trying to get them both done in a double shot for the weekend. And it can get a little tedious.
Sure. Oh, indeed. I don't know what a weekend was. Like, anytime I'd be home it was, you drove everywhere. So you drove until someone finally started flying you. You drove 6, 12, 15 hours, whatever it was, and you drove back the same night to either catch a booking on the way home or to be home because we all had shoot jobs. So, I mean, as Tracy Smothers says, you got to have a job to support your wrestling habit,
One of the highlights of your career for us, and I hate to speak for Dave, but one of the highlights for us is definitely your time in Ring of Honor with the Second City Saints. You guys just clicked and really brought it together, and you were able to have one of my favorite feuds against Dan Moff and
was it BJ Whitmer?
Yeah, BJ Whitmer.
Yeah.
And that feud that you guys had was just absolutely tremendous.
Oh man, what a good time. What a good time. What a blessing in disguise that it was that some real shady stuff went down, which is not good at all. But when Ring of Honor was in bad shape, and that's as far as I'm going to go with it, a lot of things looked to be on the downfall for it, and we were able to pick it back up and keep moving, which that whole time frame gave such a launch for guys like Delirious and Matt Sydal, and there's others I'm going to forget. Well, even Austin Aries and all those guys coming in because they were in the right spot at the right time. Because TNA pulled AJ Styles, they pulled Chris Daniels, I think at the time, and you name it, because they were able to still work TNA and Ring of Honor because Ring of Honor wasn't doing any real TV. It was all tape. Straight to tape or DVD. And Chris Daniels being pulled opened up the prophecy to bring Dan Moff and BJ Whitmer at the forefront with Kathy Carino, or Allison Danger, if you will. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry for that, but I got to cut a promo with Dusty. So
I was going to say, I recognize some Dusty in there. Nothing wrong with that.
If there's anything I regret about my time is that I never got to work with Dusty ever.
Oh, man. I wish that is the only footage I have of anything with Dusty. But he had come down for Harley one time, probably a couple times, but the one time I can recall, he ended up rolling into a battle royal, and I was directing traffic. So I'm looking at guys that really don't know what the hell's what. And, I just said what a huge NWA fan I am. And I'm like, okay, guys, you stand there, you take these elbows, and when it's a big one, you take the flip-flop and fly and bump, 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 bump. And a guy who I told to hit record on the video camera just screwed it up. And I gave him hell forever that I don't have that footage,
I think for guys our age, we all had that dream of feeding ourselves to that elbow.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I still talk about it. I just wish I had a photo of it.
Yeah, those old school. I mean, we're getting off on a different now, but that Dusty promo.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's all right. The Dusty promos were great. I was talking about when I saw the Cody Dustin match last year. I remember when Cody cut that promo about needing my brother, and immediately before I even saw anything online, I'm thinking about the Iron Anderson was a walk behind her. I don't want you to beg some scum sucking pig to be your partner. And I'm just like getting chills because I hadn't bought into anything like that in a long time. But it was just growing up that fan of that road, those promos, it just hit me back. I'm like, damn it, Cody.
Yeah. That was amazing. And you can't find that anymore. I mean, that's another sidestep. That's a missing component of wrestling now. Getting somebody emotionally invested in stuff. But trailing back to the Ring of Honor stuff with Mafa Whitmer, actually someone just posted on Twitter, a fan from a foreign country tagged me, and it was right where we had a Chicago street fight, which was the culmination of that feud, and we were slamming each other with plastic chairs like idiots. But we did the spot. We were hoping that the spot would occur where we emulate ECW, where the chairs got tossed in the ring, and sure as shit, they followed along as we fed the chairs in the ring, and it was just a beautiful sight to see. Just a beautiful sight to see. What a great end to the feud.
And once again, that's when you know that you've done it right. When you get the audience that vested, whether it's talking old NWA, the night where Ric Flair and the Horsemen chained Dusty into the cage and locked the cage, and they were just attacking the cage, or whether the fans are throwing those chairs in the ring to follow it. When it's done right, it's just such an emotional burst of energy.
Oh, so amazing. So amazing. The end of that, with another great thing, and I post a picture usually every year on Steamboat's birthday, is that Ricky Steamboat was there. He happened to be aligned with the Second City Saints for a while. Saints, sorry. I don't know why I said Stains. Second City Stains. That's awful. Steamboat was back there, and he's watching us put this together. And we know we're going in for a street fight. We know, like, we're popping aspirin, and we're doing exactly what a wrestler does before he's going to bleed. Now we don't bleed anymore, but, we know what to do. And Steamboat's just watching us, and this is not a Ricky Steamboat match. If you can find footage of him bleeding, maybe it's from the Jake DDT, I don't know, probably a couple of Flair matches, but it's not in the norm that Ricky Steamboat bleeds. And I'm pretty sure we did a four-way juice job. When that match was over, he came up to us, and he just looked at us, and I get goosebumps thinking about it. He said, I knew when you guys were talking, you were putting something special together. That was just fucking great. And we were like, we thought Ricky Steamboat was going to shit all over it because, it was just going to be, it's controlled chaos. A good brawl is controlled chaos. Yeah. And it came off. It was so awesome to have that happen and to have Steamboat do that as well.
Yeah, there is something, that's an element missing too, I think, a little bit as a fan, is that crazy brawl, the Brody era, and just like there was like even Hanson and Williams. You don't see that physical brawl, people just laying stuff in.
Well, Dave, we were talking about this beforehand, and we were talking about some of the great moments in which you've had in your career. And I think one that has to rise above it all is the haircut from Eugene.
Yeah. We were going to slip that in later, but all right.
I saw an opportunity.
We want to know how did they approach you about that, and what were you thinking at the time, basically?
Sure.
Yeah.
So to give you where I'm at in my career at that point, I'm down living in the middle of Missouri. I'm not sure if I had bought the gym yet. No, I had. I used to own the gym next to Harley Race's wrestling school. Mm-hmm. So I would have been booked out by Harley for Japan. He was my liaison and my agent for so going to Pro Wrestling Noah. But also when the Fed would come around, he'd ask me if I wanted to do tapings. Like, sure, easy money. So I'd go up there, and all I really ever wanted to do was eat food and stay away from everyone. And inevitably, I'd end up wrestling because someone would know me and say, "Hey, put Ace in the match because he can work." Man, damn it, I just want to eat food. What happens this night is everyone that I'm with, and this is I still have like the surfer hair at this point. Everyone that I'm with is bald.
Oh,
everyone on this, like they're bald or shaved head, something. I'm the only one with a head of hair. Yeah. Johnny Ace walks up and is like, "Hey kid, you want to make an extra $250?" I'm like, $500 for what? Well, we need someone to get their hair cut and do that gimmick. Oh man, really? And so all I can think of at the time is I'm going to piss Harley off. And I want to say I couldn't call him. He was actually in Japan doing something for Noah. Mm. So I couldn't call him up and say, "Boss man, they want me to cut my hair." And he would, and I'm sure it would come later to find out, why in the fuck did you do that? Why didn't you tell them no? I'm like, because I didn't want to piss you off or make you look bad. You wouldn't have made me look bad. Fuck them. And I'm like, well, sorry, dude. I cut my hair, and there's pictures of me out there with black spiky hair for a time. But so I agree. I'm like, screw it. $500. Come on, let's put this together. $500 for a haircut. It's kind of my hair's gonna grow back.
Yeah. I mean, why not?
Right.
Yeah, it's that simple business.
We have to.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say we got to give you a compliment here because your Johnny Ace and your Harley impersonations. Holy Christ, those are spot on.
Yeah.
I sat next to Harley for 5 years talking to him every day. Anyway, Johnny Ace is kind of an easy one, though. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So, as it goes on for the day, I already know Regal. I've known Regal for probably a year or two at this point, and every time I see him backstage, we'd always bullshit. And he looks at me and goes, Ace, he's like, you're not going to let him do that, are you? And I'm like, cut my hair? Yeah. He's like, but that's like your thing, you know? And I do a terrible British guy. And I'm like, well, sorry, I can't really do Regal. He's just soft-spoken. And I'm like, man, I just told him I don't want to, mess this up. So the funny part about all this is I was a plant in the crowd. So they hand me a ticket, which gives me the seat where I go get picked out of the crowd. So I just sit there and go, fuck, I'm going to lose my hair. So I walk up and I grab a beer. I grab 2 beers and I slug them. And I go down and I sit in my seat. And I'm like, damn it, I got to watch wrestling. I got to watch the dark matches. I got to watch everything until it's my segment. So I just sat there and drank beer until it was time. So they picked me out of the crowd. The other 2 were not plants. They were actual fans in the crowd. They were picked ahead of time, but they had no idea, that I was, they thought I was just a fan as well. Yeah. They had no idea I was a wrestler. Mm-hmm. So a great part about this story is Eugene is doing his gimmick, where he is the quote-unquote special person. Sure. He works it to them, and they believe it.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. So they had never seen Nick Dinsmore before. Wow.
No. And I'm like, that's kind of, if you met Nick, you could, depending on how he feels like working with you that day, just talking to you, you might go, wow, is that part of a shoot? He's just a bit of loop. He's,
That's awesome.
But he works it with these dudes. And they legit turn around after he walks away, and Regal's acting like his handler, like, okay, come on, and walks him away. And these 2 dudes are like, oh man, I didn't realize he was like that. Jeez. And I'm like, wow, we've found it right here. We got some believers. I'm not going to let him in.
That's awesome.
That must have freaked them out when he finally comes to you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was just amazing. Well, they were kayfabe the whole time. Yeah. Even when they were brought to the back, they never knew, I'm sure years later they had to figure it out, I would hope. But for that whole portion that I was around those guys, they were believers. They were believers. Because the one guy's the butler, one guy wears a dress, and of course I'm the haircut guy. See, what else do I remember about that day? Bischoff came up to me and he's like, hey, I understand you have some experience? I said, yeah. He's like, I'm just going to sidekick you right in the chest. I'm like, I got you. And they're like, don't take a wrestling bump. Do your best not to take a traditional bump. So I watched it before. I'm like, yeah, it looks fine. I just fell back. But I was like, yeah, you can blast me. I can take the shot. So what else? The only other memory I have of that is, of course, that I dropped Cabana's shoot name on TV.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I called it, like, Regal knew it, too, because I was trying to pop Regal. And he's like, what's your name? And he goes, well, the first guy, the second guy gets to me, and you, sir. And they're like, haircut. And, the crowd kind of roars because they're looking at my hair. And he goes, and what is your name? And I'm like, Scott Colton. And he knows who that is, too. And he's like, nah. So, good stuff, man. Good stuff. $500 payday to get your haircut.
Nothing wrong with that.
Now, you mentioned Harley, and you did that great impression. And it reminds me of a story I heard recently when Rick had talked about after Harley's passing. Rick does this story I had never heard about where it talks about Harley's respect. And he's working in the ring with Andre, and Harley suplexes Andre. And Rick talks to him afterwards. He's like, how did you get that spot? And and I'll do my best race. He goes,
oh, God.
What do you mean? I said suplex. Which Rick is like, what? And Harley's like, how else would I do it? I called it. And I love that story so much because obviously nobody would just call something like that normally to Andre, I'm assuming, unless you're Harley.
Right.
So, given that story, a little background about Harley, obviously, you worked with Harley so much. Any good stories with Harley? What was it like with Harley?
Harley was awesome. I actually met him. Here's the funny thing about how this all comes about. I trained in Chicago, got a shoot job that moved me to Kansas City for the mid-90s. So basically so I lived there for 5 years, 93 to 98. Over the course of that time, I wrestled in St. Louis, anywhere I could around there. And really the reason I moved back to Chicago to start school was because I didn't have anything. I was 25 years old, and I had no wrestling. There's nothing happening around me. I was doing it once a month, and I'm like, I need to do this all the time. So I happened to work a show in St. Louis, and the local promoter, a guy named Steve Murphy, shout out to Mr. Murphy, who has a bar in St. Louis, if it's still up and running, called Murphy's. He booked Harley. He would book old-timers to come in. Like, I got to work Bob Orton Jr. a couple of times, which was just a blessing. But he booked Harley to do commentary, and I popped Harley because I did the spot with the superplex, where you do the superplex, and when you land, the guy who took the bump cradles up, and he actually gets the pin on you. So I did the superplex, but the guy that, when we landed it, when I reached back, I cradled back, he cradled me, and got the pin. And Harley leans up like, holy shit, you know. And so I met Harley once there, and then not long after that, Dave Marquez went and found Harley to start up the World Legion Wrestling, which became the WLW World League Wrestling. So bottom line is, I leave because nothing's happening, and as soon as I leave, within a year, World League Wrestling starts up. I'm like, well, that's some shit for timing. I ended up working for Harley because I wanted to go to Japan, and I worked a couple of shots for him. His crew came up to Illinois on the border. He needed a referee. We had trained a referee, and then I ended up getting on the show, and then he liked my work so much, he said, send me some stuff or I'm going to, start booking you. Well, I start working with him. You may have read this story somewhere, so I'll speak to it fast. Punk told it in the back of a WWF magazine with pictures, only I was omitted from the story. What happens is he gets booked for a show in Milwaukee, Harley does, and I'm trying to get to Japan. I haven't got to Japan yet. I sent my stuff, nothing's happening. I tell the promoter, hey, let me pick him up. I don't mind. I actually had a bum knee at the time, so I could not work. I said, let me go pick Harley if he knows, and I'll cart him around. I got no problem doing this. Who gives a shit? I'm going to hang out with Harley all day. Why not, right? So I pick Harley up. We're BSing the whole day. He actually it's a tournament that night for Mid-American Wrestling, and in this match, he refs Punk and Cabana and actually takes a bump for them in the match. So before the match goes out, he's like, hold these for me. And he gives me all his rings from his giant paw hands.
Oh my God.
That are like one finger is two of my fingers. And I have all these rings on my hand. I look like such an idiot. I'm like, but I am not losing them because it's Harley shit. Match happens, it's over. This place happens to be, it's a volleyball. It's like an indoor volleyball thing. And then the rest of it, like it's half and half. It's a bar. So we go to the bar afterwards, obviously, and start having drinks. I send Harley a shot of the most rot gut whiskey you could ever think of. It is brown. I don't know if some stuff is floating in it. It's got to be awful. I said, give me your worst well shit there is. Send it to him. Tell him it's from Ace. He looks over like somebody says, Ace. I look over and he drinks it, slams it down, and he waves me over, puts his finger up. Come here. You're drinking with me. Ah, shit. What have I done? We proceed to do a few more shots and talk, and then we hash out the whole Japanese thing. He's like, he's like, don't go through anyone else. You're going through me. I said, okay, boss, I gotcha. Wasn't quite my boss yet, but I said, all right, Harley. Well, we get I'm obliterated. I'm too drunk to drive. I'm not going to. He obviously needs a ride. So I go over to Punk and I go, dude, and Punk and I are roommates at this point, so we're pretty well joined at the hip. We do all kinds of shit together. Not, we're just buds. And I'm like, dude, we drove separately, so I believe we had to drive back to Wisconsin to get my car the next day. So I said, man, Harley wants to go to this hotel. There's no way I'm driving. I can't drive. And of course, Punk straight edge is like, I got you, bud. Let's go. So we hop into Punk's new Monte Carlo, brand new Monte Carlo, nice silver. Harley's in the passenger seat. I'm in the back in the middle. Harley's talking to us. And the most god-awful noise comes out of Harley. And we're like looking at each other. And then he proceeds to roll the window down. And Punk's like, hey, you want me to stop? He goes, nope. He doesn't let himself throw up. He just spits out the window. He won't his composure does not change.
Wow.
Boom, boom, and we're like, I'm hitting Punk. I'm like, I think he's hitting me. This is ridiculous. Go. So fucking gross. But he doesn't move. You know, you guys have surely, everyone's puked in their life.
Oh, yeah,
growing up,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, whether it be from just a sickness of a virus or you drink too much.
Yeah.
This man is a rock and doesn't move and just spits out the window and goes on with his business.
Oh my God.
So fucking amazing! What a rock this guy was. And the end to that story, which I don't think made the WWF magazine, was the next day Punk goes to, you know, like a detail place to get his car washed, gets it washed, and some kid's wiping it up, and the kid's like, yeah, man, I don't know what that was in that door, but that was pretty hard to get out, but, you know, I did it. And I think Punk handed him like a 20, and he goes, you watch wrestling? And the guy's like, yeah, man, I watch wrestling. He goes, you know who Harley Race is? Oh, yeah, I know who he is. He's like, yeah, that was his puke he just cleaned up. And then hopped in the car and drove away.
That's awesome.
It's good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we asked you about the haircut. We brought it to Harley. Let's bring it back to another moment. This was the other one I wanted to ask you about. It's the only other one we're going to ask you about that's probably like, I'm just curious how this came about. For those who don't know, you played Donald Trump in a match against Rosie O'Donnell. How did that come about, and what were you thinking at that time?
Let me state this before I tell you the story. And this is a great story.
Okay.
I spent my life trying to be, just at some point I wanted to be like, you know, Guerrero, Malenko, Benoit, those guys that went to Japan, like that model of a wrestler, right? I changed from a flamboyant guy wearing feathers at some point to a guy that was just, I mean, you know, your body's your business in wrestling. So I worked on the frame, and then my look and then my work style just evolved to what it was, being a brawler, being just I just want to be a solid worker and a good hand. There's no mistaking that. Have your fundamentals, have your background, which gets me booked on this day. And I will back this up just a quick sec to say a year prior, Ted DiBiase had seen me work. And at that time, I looked as good as I could look, was working as good as I could work, was going to Japan in and out, doing tours, working for Harley, working everywhere, and I couldn't get signed to save my life. Fast forward about a year, I don't even know if it was quite a year, maybe a year and a half. I'd have to look at dates again. It's been too long. But I get a call from Supernova, Mike Bucci, who I have a good rapport with, and says, hey, Ace, he's like, you'll never guess, it's on Friday, you'll never guess what I have to book for Monday. What do you got? He's like, well, I got to book a fake Rosie against a fake Trump on Monday Night Raw. The show we've been watching since its inception. Yeah. I have to book this match. And I start laughing, and I'm like, and to put it in perspective, this is the height of The Apprentice. The Apprentice is hot on TV, right. And he's got this, and Trump has just called Rosie O'Donnell all these derogatory terms, and they got this big feud happening on TV. It is hot shit. It's, you know, and I laugh, and I go, that's hilarious. I'm like, you know, I play Trump. And he goes, that's why I'm calling you. So, really? And he goes, do you have a tie? Do you have a suit? I said, no, I don't have any of that shit. And lo and behold, I get everything I need. I show up on Monday night. I show up for Monday Night Raw. Fun fact, Pat Buck, who is now a producer at WWE, he in WrestlePro is where he helps run with Brian Myers. He was the alternate Trump. Like, they had to give two just in case. And Bucci I was like, you had another guy? And he's like, I had to have two. He's like, I knew you were my guy. I told this once on Cabana's podcast a long time ago, but I'll kind of fast forward through the stuff. But that's pretty much it. Like, they walk in, I see Michael Hayes. I'm sitting in catering with a suit on, and Michael Hayes and Shawn Michaels walk in. And it's funny, I never reminded Shawn about this when I was at the PC. I just never brought it up. But he and Michaels walk in. I see them looking around, just stumped. And they're like, what do you think he looks like? And I go, you looking for a Trump? They're like, yep. And I'm like, that's me. And I look nothing like Donald Trump, right? And they're like, oh, well, they're like, they'll put a wig on you and all this stuff. And so we get in the ring and we go over some stuff. And obviously, if you watch it back, the girl who did Rosie looks way more like Rosie than I do a Trump. But I was the mechanic to keep, I was the mechanic to be the glue to get this all together. And think about this. I told the story to the kids in the ring the other day. I said, think about this, guys. We had about 10 minutes on Monday Night Raw. Wrestlers don't get 10 minutes on Monday Night Raw sometimes. That have worked there forever or want it this week. Yeah. Like, there are times when you have to fight. I have 10 minutes on Monday Night Raw to get over the biggest farce that you could put on, where the crowd at the Scott Trade Center in St. Louis is chanting, "We want wrestling," I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God, this is horrid." It's exactly what Vince wanted. It's exactly what Vince wanted. So.
Yeah, doing that in St. Louis is like doing that in Chicago or some of the other rabid wrestling cities where oh my God.
Oh yeah. I was just like, oh my God, they hate it. So, which is why at the end, if you watch it, one of the most important parts is when I waffle her with Fudgy the Whale, because if you have good footage of it, you will hear that I cracked. I put it in. Let's just I put it in. I had the anxiety of, they hate this. Well, I'm going to give them something good, and man, she took a cake.
Sometimes you just got to lay it in good. Now, to speak of something else that's kind of cool, we talked about obviously you teaching earlier on and what it was like for those 3 years maybe that Windy City had the school going. How much different was it to go down and coach in NXT last year and earlier this year, and to go down there and work in the facilities that they have compared to, say, the wrestling schools that we went to when we were coming up?
Well, the world is different now. There's so many advances. I would even go to say, look at the advances in weightlifting. I mean, all of us back in the day just knew how to work out like a bodybuilder. Yeah. That's not functional. That's not functional for anything you do. So, I mean, I never heard of a deadlift until 10 years ago, it's like, I can't do that. My back is awful.
Yeah.
But things like that. So the advancements in wrestling, I mean, at our school, Windy City didn't train us this way. At our wrestling school, the Steel Domain we had, we would just run drills of drop downs and drop kicks and leapfrogs and things and then wrestle a bit. But there weren't the rolls, there weren't the warm-ups, there weren't the safety precautions taken that I learned at the PC that you take with workers that you train nowadays to keep them functional, keep them that they could wrestle nightly. You have trainers, you have all these things, all these precautions to keep your body healthy, all that you can. It's an amazing place when it's up and running. It's not at the moment. So
yeah, that's warming up for us when we were going through it was running the ropes and taking your basic flat backs to make sure that you were hitting the mat right. That's
sure.
It's incredible the differences.
So one of the things, last things we want to ask you is basically with everything going on in the world now, with COVID, how are you holding up? How are you keeping busy? What's going on these days?
What's going on these days? Holding up just fine. Everybody gets cabin fever. I had cabin fever as well.
Yeah.
I started training over at Pro Wrestling 2.0, which is here in Winter Park, Florida, which is in the Orlando area. Being out and about in the world, I'm wearing a mask like everybody else. I mean, just following the rules. I like to go places. I like to go have a meal and drink a beer. Just now people are 6 foot away from you all around the bar and the eateries and the establishments and stuff like that. Just trying to keep safe. 2.0 is an awesome place. There's a lot of hungry kids there. It's run by a guy named Alex Porteau, who used to be, if you look back in the archives, he was the pug for a short time for WWF.
Oh, yeah.
But he's, he started in the late 80s, so he got a taste of the territories from USWA, Global, and coming down to Florida. He and I actually worked roughly about 20 years ago in the early 2000s, a failed promotion called WXO down here in Florida. But anyway, Alex has a great mind for the business, has always loved wrestling. He just likes to give back and have, a good place for kids to work. We just came in contact together because of mutual people. I ran a seminar. He asked me to come down once a week to train. So it's fulfilling a need for me to still get in the ring and still give information and work with these kids. And that's a different set of kids as opposed to the PC. Not that they weren't hungry as well. It's just a different set of kids to work with. So it's just awesome. So I'm just staying busy with that, watching film, continue studying. Yeah, that's my life. I just got married recently, which is awesome.
Congrats.
I had a great job. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Florida based now. I've been a Midwest guy my whole life, growing up in Chicago. We moved to Florida when I got the PC gig and started last year. It's just awesome. Just reaping the benefits of life is good.
See, now I've got to ask you a personal question here. Now, you're from Chicago. Are you a baseball fan?
I'm a fair-weathered sports fan altogether, but I know where this is going.
I just need to know Cubs or White Sox.
Cubs always.
See, and the reason why I have to ask that is because we didn't know we have this rivalry. I am a lifelong St. Louis Cardinals fan. Yeah.
Oh, you dirty son of a... Oh. You want the truth is that my wife, Lucy Mendez, God, this is one of the things, this is probably the only thing I can't
tell me
stand
she's a
about her.
Cardinals fan, please.
She's a freaking Cardinals fan, dude. She was trained by Harley. She's actually a wrestler. She was trained by Harley, and she has an affinity for St. Louis. She has a St. Louis. She has a St. Louis tattoo, of course.
And she is an angel because, like I said, I can't even tell you how big of a St. Louis Cardinals fan I am. That's
sounded like she was going to shoot on you too for a minute.
She heard it.
Ace, we are big fans of yours, but we just became bigger fans of your wife.
Son of a bitch.
She got over.
She got over, yeah. Man, always getting over on me, but, you know.
But, hey, congratulations. Thank you very much for taking the time for us. Is there anything that we can promote for you that we can bring to the fans?
Yeah, that's it.
My Twitter and my Instagram are @Aces of Steel, just the way it sounds, Aces of Steel. You can find me on there. Facebook, I don't play with it too much, but there's an Ace Steel and actually Lucy Mendez. She was my valet at one point, or, my manager, my wrestling manager at one point, so we just have it together. But the Aces of Steel, I'm going to start, not only am I doing the training at 2.0, but I'm doing private sessions, coaching sessions, with people that want to come in one-on-one and learn a bit more instead of a group setting where, you're not able to focus on someone, so you can get a hold of me either on the Instagram or Twitter or message Pro Wrestling 2.0 in Florida. The other thing, I do have a Pro Wrestling Tee store, so there's Ace Steel shirts out there. I got to think of some new ones. They've been kind of stagnant for a minute. There's some good ones. And I'll throw this out there. Last year, what led up to me being at the PC is I helped co-produce the stunts for the Netflix film The Main Event, which is on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
Very highly rated. It's where the kid finds the magical mask and all that. Mm-hmm. It's great film, great little, it's like Home Alone with wrestling. And I helped put together with the stunt coordinator Lauro Deval, he's got a long name. Lauro Deval Chartrand. It's hard to say. He's got the French name there, but Lash himself, he's a legend. He's a legend in just doing stunts all the way around. He's worked on Walker, Texas Ranger with Chuck Norris. Anyway, he welcomed me in. He and Paul Lazenby, who's another legend, was a stunt double for Stone Cold on a lot of his movies. We put together all the scenes, like the wrestling scenes that are there that you see. So it's a fun movie, so I'll just throw that out.
I got to tell you, that's very impressive. Dave's actually watched it 4 times, which is incredible because he doesn't have children.
Yeah, I'm just weird. Don't worry.
The weirdness comes out. Well, yeah. One of you is weird. One of you is weird, and one of you has shitty sports taste.
Yes.
Yes.
Nice shot.